Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, don't believe the hype. Here's my review of In the Blink of an Eye by Jo Callaghan. Now, I'm filming this video at 9:30 in the morning. You'd expect at 9:30 in the morning to be able to read a book just using daylight, but it is miserable outside. It's wet, it's windy, it's grey, it's feeling very autumnal, and that's where today's sponsor, Serious Readers, comes in. So Serious Readers make fantastic high-definition reading lights, which are wonderful to use. I've been using one for a few months now, and I found it really, really beneficial. And it's especially beneficial on days like this when the daylight outside just isn't good enough. Serious Readers use something called daylight wavelength technology in their lights, and it really does feel like sunlight on the page. It makes reading much easier, especially if, like me, you're getting a bit older and your eyes maybe aren't quite as sharp as they used to be. I found that good lighting makes such a difference to my reading, and these lights definitely provide that. And they're beautifully made as well, very solid feeling, hand assembled in the UK, and very easy to use. So they have simple controls that allow you to change the brightness of the light and the width of the beam. So if you're interested, please do check out the link in the description to this video, and if you use the code OLLIE24 you'll get £100 off your first order. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let's get back to the books. So this is a book that seems to have made quite a splash. I've seen loads of people talk about it, and it's won 2 quite prestigious awards as well. So it won the Theakston's Best Crime Novel Award and also the Crime Writers Association New Blood Award. And whilst it's an interesting and enjoyable book, I definitely don't think it deserved to win either of those awards. It has a great concept at its heart, and I think that's one of the reasons for its success, but it also definitely feels like a first novel. It's quite clumsily written at times, and I found myself getting increasingly irritated by it as I read it because of its reliance on overused tropes. So the concept, let me talk about the concept first. So the concept is a really good one. So this is a book about artificial intelligence. And Jo Callaghan is actually someone who has worked in that field. So she's writing this book with some personal knowledge. And that does show. Her portrayal of artificial intelligence is quite convincing at times. So the concept here is that a traditional kind of old school detective gets paired up with an artificial intelligence to solve cases. So that is a really interesting concept, and it's a concept that appealed to me as a reader as soon as I heard about this book. I wanted to read the book because of that concept, and I think it's such a topical thing at the moment, isn't it? Artificial intelligence. We're spending a load of time as a society thinking about both the promises or possibilities of artificial intelligence, but also the dangers and the threats. And the book definitely examines that to an extent. So the idea here is that this old school detective called Cat Frank gets paired up with an artificial intelligence to solve some cases. So the police force wants to save some money, they want to become more efficient, and effectively they want to use this AI to like crunch data to allow the detectives to investigate crimes more quickly. So this team is formed, headed up by Detective Cat Frank, with a couple of other detectives who are kind of subordinate to her, and also this professor who's invented this kind of detection AI. So the AI is called Locke. And Locke teams up with Frank, and they become like this kind of buddy cop duo. So it's a great concept. It immediately gripped me from, the book gripped me from the start, but the more I read of it, the less I enjoyed it. So Cat and Locke and the team are investigating missing persons cases. They've got a long list to go through, and they decide to prioritise 2. So Cat effectively picks one based on her gut reaction to it, and Locke picks one based on analysing all of the data and figuring out that that is the one that they are most likely to be able to solve. And that kind of tension between the 2 detectives is really at the heart of the book. So Locke, as an artificial intelligence, is all about just crunching the numbers and looking at probability. Cat is an old school detective, so very much driven by gut instinct and her personal experience of investigating cases in the past. So they do make at times quite an interesting double act, and that tension between them is enjoyable to read, certainly in the early parts of the book. And it's certainly a book that's very readable. It's written in a very easy reading style that means that the pages fly by. Cat and Lock are interesting characters. The other detectives have their own kind of subplots as well, which are quite interesting. And there's a certain amount of kind of emotion and humour and things like that in the book as well. So in many ways it feels kind of quite well-rounded. But as a crime novel, as a mystery novel, I think it really fails. It does that thing where there are two separate plot lines which feel that they are completely separate, completely different from each other, but you know in the back of your mind they're going to come together. And the book indeed does that, but it does it in a way that feels a bit like cheating. And certainly when you get to the end of the book and you find out what's really been going on, there weren't really any clues to that you could pick up on as a reader as you were going through the book. I found myself feeling a bit cheated by the end of the book. It just felt a bit ridiculous. And whilst Jo Callaghan does in many ways do a good job of representing AI and talking about some of the problems with the AI, some of the challenges, and also some of the problems in the police force as well. So there's quite a lot in this book about like institutional racism in the police force, which I felt was well handled. But equally, there are other parts of the message elements of the book which just don't work. So, for example, Locke has an avatar, like a holographic image, which means that it can take part in interrogations. And that, to me, just felt completely unreal. I cannot imagine a situation where any police force today would actually have an AI interrogating people, asking witnesses questions and things like that. It just feels like no risk assessment team would sign up to that. And when Locke isn't doing that stuff, when Locke isn't like this avatar, basically all it's doing is crunching numbers. It's just a computer that runs in the background that can analyse data really, really quickly. So it flips from being quite interesting but a bit ridiculous to being kind of boring. And I didn't feel that Jo Callaghan managed to build a true character for Locke to actually make it engaging as a character throughout the book. There's also a couple of storytelling techniques that Jo Callaghan uses in the book which I felt really fell flat. So one is this thing where you have anonymous characters where you're given an insight into what has happened to the missing people, but you don't know who the characters are, and the detectives, crucially, don't have access to this information as well. That in crime novels always winds me up a bit. I always feel like it's a bit of a cheat. I don't like it when I, as a reader, am given more information than the detectives. And then the other thing the book has is interview scenes where one of the detectives is talking to a witness. And those are laid out like a play. So just the character name and then what they said. And I found the dialogue in those sections just felt completely unrealistic. The sections fell really flat for me and took me out of my enjoyment of the book. So this is a book that had a lot of promise. It's got a great central concept and it is engagingly written at times. But for me, the thing that crime novels and mystery novels really need in order to work well is good plotting. And I think the plotting and some of the narrative techniques in this book just fall flat. It just doesn't work overall. And because of that, I can't recommend it. I am really interested to see AI investigated in crime fiction more in the future. I'll probably give Jo Callaghan's next book a try. There is definitely going to be another one in this series. But overall, I'm afraid this one was a dud for me. Anyway, if you've read it, do let me know in the comments what you thought of it. If there are other crime novels involving artificial intelligence that you can recommend, please do let me know those. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.